approved with a view of consolidating national unity, accelerating economic and social and cultural development of the nation. The draft constitution submitted to the people of Cameroon by the President of the Federal Republic of Cameroon and instituting a republic, one and indivisible, which will be called the United Republic of Cameroon, yes, was the motion that was on the ballot in 1972 referendum 20th May, when Cameroonians of all walks of life all converged at the polling station to vote in terms of approving centralization and removing the federal structure based on the 1966 debacle, which happened, under which we experienced the most draconian process in which the amalgamation of political parties came into existence in 1966 and was actively visualized in 1972 with a referendum making the process legal. This is House of Commons. Today's edition, we are going to dissect on looking at the we and yes option and looking at what lesson can we learn of today's future, and how can we look into a situation that will not repeat itself again, plaguing with the crisis in North and Southwest region in our context. This is House of Commons with me, Tah Mai Javis. There is a common song we used to sing when we were at the elementary or kindergarten level. It is 11th February 1961. The United Nations gave us the option to choose independence or reunification. It was a great day. This is a popular song that we grew up and we were taught as far as patriotism is concerned within the North and Southwest region. And those within the East Cameroon have their own, that they will tell you no more West and no more East, meanness and so on. And when they tell you that, it requires the nation of patriotism. But today's edition, we are looking at constitutionality of 1972 referendum and the we and yes vote. What lesson for a better today? Joining us on today's program, we have a barrage of legal minds who are supposed to be with us today in the studio, but some are still on their way, and others have notified that they have health challenges, reason why they cannot make it here. As it is said in literature, with me or not with me, life goes on the same. We will kickstart with today's edition of our program. To begin with, here in the studio, we have Barrister Nkamwah Limen, who is joining us for his second time. Barrister Nkamwah Limen, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Mr. Javis. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm a bit surprised that with such an interesting topic, the other members have not been here, because as an Anglophone, when I saw your topic, I was moved to contribute and maybe to assist in my own small way that peace be returned to our communities, and that people of bad faith should understand that a wrong was done to a people. And so I'll be here to contribute on the topic.
Thank you very much, Barrister Nkamwah Limen. And also joining us live via Skype is Mr. Ngolle. Mr. Ngolle, a privilege to have you here with us. Once again, happy Sunday over there.
Thank you very much, Javis, for having me. It's a pleasure to join you on the House of Commons this Sunday. And my regards to Barrister Limen and all other panelists, and happy Sunday to all the televiewers.
Happy Sunday to you too. Also, we will be having intervention from the former minister, Professor Ngolle, a political scientist who will be representing the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the CPDM, and he will be talking from a political standpoint such that we can have diversity. Remember that we must always give the voice of those who differ with some other persons, because in the issue of media, the aspect of balance and fairness is of utmost importance. I'll begin with Professor Ngolle, except which I spoke with him earlier before we could start this program, to give us his view about the legality of the 1972 referendum, because a lot of scholars are of the opinion that the 1972 referendum was illegal, as Barrister Nkea, who will be joining us, said last time ago on this same plateau, that it was the greatest fraud ever committed in the entire Africa and the world at large. Maybe we get Professor Ngolle's reaction on the legality before we get to the other members who will be joining us.
Well, those who make that case, I think, I don't, I mean, with all due respect, I disagree with them on two grounds. First, I mean, and I think lawyers can argue this. We have a lot of good lawyers in Cameroon, and I think that all the lawyers know very well that the 1972 referendum was legal, was constitutional, in other words, it was in conformity with the 1961 Constitution, and that from the standpoint of law, I don't think any lawyer of good faith would say that it was illegal or that it was unconstitutional. I don't think so. That's from a legal standpoint, and I will let lawyers spend their time arguing that. But from a purely political science standpoint, that's what I'm going to talk about. I am an associate professor of political science. I've been teaching political systems, comparative political systems, political parties in Africa for many, many years. And I continue to teach. I want to tell you this, from a political science theory standpoint, and from the standpoint of political science practice. The 1972 referendum was in conformity with the logic and the theory of political science, because the 1972 Constitution referendum was an act which was in line with acts that had begun with the 1960 Declaration of Independence of Cameroon, followed by the 1961 11 February plebiscite, followed by the Fumban Conference and the federal constitution that was put in place. So 1972, 20th May 1972 was simply a logical, a logical act that had as one goal. The goal was to make Cameroon, the Union of Cameroon, a stronger, a solid union. So as long as to construct unity, it's a political process, it's not a legal process. And it's good for those who make the legal case not to lose sight of the fact that the construction of unity is not done in courts of law, by lawyers. The construction of unity, the unity of a nation, the unity of a political society, is done by men and women who are driven by patriotism, by a common will to move forward together and to define the limits of the nation or of the state in accordance with their wishes, their desires, and they will make laws to ensure and put in place a constitution to ensure that their political acts, and their acts are political, become the order of the day. So the goal of achieving a union is not a legal process. It is a political process. Don't he who or she who wants to make the legal case as if we're in a court of law that the union was illegal or was unconstitutional lose sight of the fact that, I mean, there are lawyers out there who are, I don't doubt, and we have very good many lawyers who know that legally speaking, the 1972 Act was constitutional and was legal. The United Nations, by the way, The United Nations, France, and the United States, and Great Britain, they know that the 1972 Constitution, those who are lawyers, those who are political scientists know, or those who are political sociologists know that the 1972 referendum was a logical act in a process which had as finality or as a goal the union of a people.
Okay, Barrister Nkamwah Limen, I'll start with you before moving to Ngolle. You've listened to Professor Evis Ngolle. I really wish that Senior Barrister Emmanuel, who is following up, but he was supposed to be here, but due to some challenges health-wise, so he cannot be here to have reacted to this. Maybe a reaction with to that of Professor Evis Ngolle.
You know, I don't find his arguments reasonable, and you know he talks from the point of view as a politician and somebody who is benefiting from the system. I feel very embarrassed that you coin it as a political problem and not a legal issue. It is wrong. That's to misinform the society. Politics derives the right from a constitution. The constitution defines those institutions and empower those institutions, and therefore a politician governs in accordance with the constitution, which is a ground norm, the highest law. So you cannot dissociate the constitution or legality from political activities. What is legal? Legality is deriving validity of your act from a higher law, and the constitution is a higher law. And so I find it very strange that a professor will look at this as a political issue and not a legal issue. That is wrong to begin with. I appreciate the fact that you recognize the fact that they're intelligent lawyers, and to be very honest with you, you should, Honorable Minister, you should know that politics is governed by the Constitution. Else, the political actions will be considered illegal. Okay, he talks about the referendum as being legal. Sir, when you violate a provision of a constitution, nothing legal stands on illegality. And it was done in gross violation of Article 47 of that same constitution that he referred to, which disposed inter alia that any proposal for the revision of the present constitution which impairs the unity and integrity of the federation shall be inadmissible, and proposals for revision shall be adopted by simple majority vote of the members of the Federal Assembly. This is very clear. And when you talk about legality and you say an act was committed in flagrant violation of the Constitution, there is every evidence to believe that you talk from a point of vantage, from a point of interest, and at the detriment of the Anglophones who hold, and I hold with them, that they have been marginalized, they have been duped, there was a miscarriage of justice, there was a constitutional violation. So the minister should rethink about this provision. Look, his reasoning in line with the Constitution.
He reacted to that provision, but Barrister Nkamwah Limen, I want the minister raised an issue here. He said it's not an issue of the legality is based on the people's willingness to cast their ballot, which he said they cast their ballot. That based on that, it is legal, that the fraudulent aspect being put in by lawyers, teachers, and some politicians, it doesn't hold ground because the people went to the poll and cast their ballot.
Mr. Javis, I've said here before that nothing legal stems from illegality. So it goes without saying that if the Constitution that he referred to had provisions to the effect that the Constitution cannot be revised through a plebiscite or through a referendum, And the president took upon himself, Ahijo took upon himself to use that means, that method. It goes without saying that it was illegal. It was unconstitutional. Let us be honest and accept the truth. And we are not surprised that the outcomes of election in Cameroon are always mad, you understand, with fraud. And how certain, how sure are we that even the results they proclaim from the referendum reflects the people? I wish to make it clear that the Constitution reflects the ethos, the aspiration of the people. And you cannot come and challenge the Constitution, which is a grown norm, which is the most superior law of a country, by a call from a president to do a referendum, which is prohibited by the Constitution. So there is no legality in what was done.
Okay, I'll be coming back to you, Mr. Ngolle. If you are there with us, I want you to react to Professor Ngolle. He is a senior political analyst and a senior member of the Common People Democratic Movement, a Harvard scholar, and he said the aspect of the Constitution that the people went to the poll to cast their ballot is legal first, and that the illegality that you people are talking about on the 1972 referendum doesn't hold grounds because the people, the mandate is gotten from the people, and Ahijo went to the people to get their mandate. I can't get you. Can you unmute? I can't get you. Can you unmute?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Javis. So I listened to Prof with a lot of interest on this question, not only because he's a member of the CPDM, but because he's a professor of political science. It's a professor of political science. And political science works hand in hand with the law. So it's unfortunate that Prof made what I can summarize into 3 points. The first, Prof says that it was not a legal process, but a political process, and this cannot be handled in the courts of law. And it's done by men and women. Secondly, he said the 1972 act of the referendum was constitutional. And then lastly, he said the 1972 Act was a continuum of events that started since 1960. Talking about separation between the legal process and the political process that is done by men, I think I hesitate to agree with Professor Ngolle on this point. The reason is simple. The political space is managed by men and women, and the courts are managed by men and women. So to kind of say that a political process must not be legal because it is managed by men and women is off the mark. So whether it is a political process or a legal process or a sociological process or a religious process, these processes operate within clearly defined norms. The reason for which society has made norms is because we know that people can act in manners that do not represent the interests of everyone. So under the current state of under the current form of nations as we have today, we have what we call laws. And these laws are made by people. And when these people make laws, they set in criteria, they set in procedures, they set in standards that must be respected. And most fundamentally, these laws set in manners in which they can be revised. The reason for setting in procedures and manners of revision is to ensure that certain people within the state do not arrogate unto themselves the powers to amend the laws to suit them and defend and protect their only interests. This now brings us to the question of the constitutionality of the 1972 referendum. When we talk of the constitutionality of the law, what do? The first thing is we read the letter of the Constitution. We read the law as it is written. I would not want to go back into this because Barrister Limen has done a brilliant expose on this. He cited Article 47 of the Constitution.
Yeah, we'll be coming. We'll also be coming to 47. Continue. I'm just saying that we shall be coming to that because Professor Ngolle also talked about that article.
Yeah, I'm landing on that now. When Professor Ngolle says it was a constitutional act, I don't understand the canons of constitutional interpretation that he applied in this case. Because when you read Article 47, particularly 47.1 and 3, you find that it was not constitutional. The Constitution was violated. And when people come together, as he said, people come together to make their laws that govern them. This is what we call the right to self-determination. The right to self-determination, which is covered in the International Convention of Human and People's Rights, in the Civil and Political Rights, in the Convention of Economic and Social Rights, and in the UN Charter, are the grounds on which most African states got their independence, the right to self-determination. And Professor is right in this case to say that the 1972 referendum is a continuation of acts that started in 1960. But I wouldn't end at 1960. We need to take this history right back to 1884 when the colonization was done. We know all that happened. But along the line, there was a right to self-determination that needs to be respected. The 1961 plebiscite was enforced on the right to self-determination, where Southern Cameroonians decided on whether they would attain independence by joining Cameroon or Nigeria. But we still have a question about the right to self-determination in this case, because the UN did not give them the option of determining for themselves whether they wanted complete independence. That is a question that was handled last Sunday. Now, when we talk about the 1972 referendum, in addition to the fact that Article 47 did not recognize that right, the historical and political context need to be taken into consideration. And the political context here is the people who decided to join needed to have also made that decision by themselves. So on the face of it, on the constitutionality of the referendum, it's evident that it violated the Constitution.
Okay.
And coming in from as a consequence of other acts, it violated Southern Cameroonians' right to self-determination, because that decision was not made by Southern Cameroonians, it was made by Southern Cameroonians and citizens of Cameroon, of East Cameroon, who did not take part in the initial vote.
We're coming to that too. Mr. Ngolle, we'll come to that too, because Professor Ngolle, you are ushering us now to the second intervention, which I asked Professor Ngolle, because I asked about the issue of many are saying that it was an election that was supposed to be, the referendum was supposed to be conducted by those from the West Cameroon, not the entire country per se, because they were the people who decided in first on 11 February 1961 plebiscite to join the Republic of Cameroon for a federal structure, that they were the ones to vote. But Professor Ngolle said that the fact that they decided to join the French Cameroon, it does mean that it's just a single state, and so everybody has to take that decision. Maybe we go to Professor Ngolle again on that issue to find out if the whole nation was supposed to vote on this, so that by Nkamwah Limen and yourself, Mr. Ngolle, you have to react. And those, if you're watching us on Facebook, please do well to send your message or you send your questions, because it's a follow-up, it's a series that we are engaging in. So next Sunday we shall take on the 1983, that's the change of the state to the Republic of Cameroon. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can leave a message. If you're watching us at home, you want to ask questions, you can leave a message. Professor Ngolle too is following the program. I'm sure he will be reacting too, because he could not join us here live on today's Sunday. Let's get to Professor Ngolle.
I heard of that argument before, but again, I keep on saying that luckily we have, I think that I admire and I think I have a lot of respect for our lawyers, but I think that our lawyers also have to learn to have respect for those who have other specializations or other specialties. You know, when you're talking about a political process, it is not something you talk as if it's done in a court of law by lawyers and judges. That's not what the process of unification or reunification, which is a political process, that's not the way it works. When people make the case, and lawyers for that matter, who are brilliant, by the way, and they're learned men and women, make the case that, the referendum was illegal or constitutional because it was national. It was supposed to have been done only by, or it should have been carried out only in the northwest and southwest region, as was the case in 1961 with the plebiscite. They are making a mistake here. Don't forget, and again, let us keep on being honest with ourselves and being of good faith. We shouldn't forget that the 11th February 1961 plebiscite was not conducted by Cameroonians, it was conducted by the United Nations. Secondly, We shouldn't forget that the 11th of February 1961 Constitution referendum, plebiscite, by the way, was not limited only to southern Cameroons. It included British northern Cameroons. It was the same question, which had exactly the same consequences. So when they are talking about the 1961 plebiscite, they keep on forgetting that it was not something organized by Cameroonians. It was organized by the trusteeship authority of the territory of British Northern and British South. In fact, I shouldn't say British. The trust territory, the authority of the British trust territory of British Cameroons was the United Nations. And it is the United Nations that organized that plebiscite for the British Northern and the British Southern Cameroons, and the results were applied as they were received. For the British Northern Cameroons, we know what the results are. They are part of Nigeria, fully integrated. For the British Southern Cameroons, we know what the results were. British Southern Cameroon is part of the Republic of Cameroon. Now, therefore, for some persons to have expected or to claim that the referendum 11 years later, after Cameroon had already been reunified, should be done by just the former British Southern Cameroons, they are wrong on two counts. Politically, the referendum was a national referendum because the Southern Cameroons was no more Southern Cameroons as of 1st of October 1961. The Southern Cameroons stopped legally and politically and constitutionally, stopped existing with effect from 1st of October 1961 because the plebiscite of 11 February gave a result that said Southern Cameroons had opted to achieve its independence by joining the Republic of Cameroon, just like Northern British Cameroons opted to achieve its independence by joining the Federal Republic of Cameroon. When you argue that the independence of Southern Cameroon meant something different, meant something else, are you saying that the independence of British Northern Cameroons also meant something different? No. The same effect, the same actions produce the same consequences. So it is good that people understand this. There is no way a national referendum could have been held by or in just part of a nation which is already united. It's not possible. It's almost like saying that Nigeria should hold a referendum or a plebiscite for the former British Northern Cameroon. That's not possible. Prof. The national referendum is for the entire nation.
Okay, I want to come to you, by Nkamwah Limen, before getting to Mr. Ngolle, who is on standby. By Nkamwah Limen, you listen to Professor Ngolle. He articulated that it is the right of every Cameroonian at the time to vote for the referendum, and not just the right of those from the British Southern Cameroon, because by 11 February 1961, they had voted to join the Republic of Cameroon.
You know, I listen to the minister with a lot of pain in my heart because I don't know his interpretation of events, but I want him to know that at the plebiscite, the representatives from the Southern Cameroons came to come into an agreement on how to unite with their brothers. The conditions for such a unification. He should not forget that they came and they made rather a draft constitution, a constitution which was already prepared by La République. And so he should not say that the whatever happened there reflected, first of all, the ethos of the Southern Cameroonians. Now he articulates that it was the right for all Cameroonians to vote. That is not true. Not true because the only intention, the only purpose for everybody to vote was because the president needed a majority, and with the La République population, they would have outnumbered the Anglophone, the Southern Cameroonians. That is the only reason why they brought them in. Now, it was an issue for us, Southern Cameroonians, who came in for a federal republic, for us to decide, to choose if we want to transform that into La République, because what actually happened is that they were just assimilated and they become La République today. And so it was not for the Francophones to vote if they were to join, they should accept us, be with them. It is first of all for us to accept.
But here is an issue that is like you say it should be conducted only with the French, with the British Southern Cameroon. That is like the issue with Northern Nigeria, that if Nigeria has to conduct a referendum, are you saying that only those from not British Northern Cameroon who join Nigeria should vote, whereas they are already in the union in Nigeria? Because from 61 to 72 is already a good period where the union was already existing.
Look, there was the agreement, there was the desire to join La République. There was a desire that was manifested by the Southern Cameroonians, the Southern Cameroons. The North section decided to go with Nigeria. And so when we came in Fumban, it was to look at the modalities, the terms of this union. And so he should not say that the Anglophones or the Southern Cameroonians came and accepted to be part of La République. That is not true, Javis. That is not true. And as I said before, the only reason why they brought in La République or the French Cameroon to vote was because they needed just a majority. Now, let me ask him a very good question. Since we had that referendum to modify the constitution, have we ever had one again in Cameroon? We have never, to the best of my knowledge. They go to the parliament, they change the provisions of the constitution. The 1996 amendment of the constitution never went through that. The 1972 amendment of the constitution never went through that. So, what is he talking about? It was illegal, and I hold to say that it was done in flagrant violation of the the constitution.
Before I get to Mr. Bertrand Ngolle, I want to stay with you on this. On the aspect of the voting, if we look at what Professor Ngolle articulated, he stated that British Southern Cameroon ceased to exist immediately after 11 February 1961 plebiscite. But when we look at the issue of the independence was granted on 1st of October 1961.
He knows that he's not saying the truth. He knows.
And the Yaoundé Tripartite Congress was in August, which the draft constitution was.
We really don't need to belabor on that. He knows that that's not the truth. Because even after the 1961 constitution, right, it was federated states, and that's why we had the 2 stars. So you cannot pretend that it was. So what was the purpose therefore if it was already a unity state? What was the purpose of modifying the constitution to United Republic of Cameroon? Why? From Federal Republic. So the change in that appellation indicates the kind of society we have. And so you cannot pretend that it was a unity state from inception. That is not true. And the problem arose because the Francophone, or the French Cameroon, tried to modify the constitution to suit their aspirations. That is to assimilate the Southern Cameroon to be La République. And unfortunately, we have it today. And unfortunately, we still have people like Professor Ngolle who still believe that what happened was right. It is wrong, Mr. Minister, it is wrong. And let us be honest to tell people when something is wrong, that it is wrong.
Barrister in Hillary Abia watching us, he says, I totally disagree with Professor Ngolle on the grounds that the 1972 referendum is politically and not legal. Legality is constitutional and must be recognized in any activity within territorial limits. The Constitution, being the highest law of the land, is questioned before the court for interpretation. In every society there is law. In every society there is law expressed in Latin as ibi societas be just. The legality must be observed at every instant. I'm not the legal mind to pronounce all those legality issues. This other one reads, it says, good afternoon, House of Commons, nice program. I really wish to have loved to have Professor Ngolle live so that he can react on our messages. Good day, House of Commons. Please, can we, Cameroonians would like to see our country in peace, but when we have people like Professor who always take side because of political gain and position, then I can conclude that we still have a long way to go. Prof, please, you're supposed to be honest. This is coming from an anonymous sender. Let's get back to you, Mr. Galem. Mr. Galem, you will listen to Professor Ngolle, maybe a reaction before I ask you my question. You're muted.
Yes, thank you, Javis. One of the things I noted from Professor Ngolle's second statement, is the importance to have had him on panel to kind of explain certain things to us. For instance, when he says that Southern Cameroon ceased to exist in 1961,
after the plebiscite,
it will be important to know the international law mechanisms under which Southern Cameroons, according to him, ceased to exist in 1961. No, Southern Cameroons did not cease to exist in 1961. What happened was, even in the Constitution, Southern Cameroons was renamed West Cameroon. You know, Southern Cameroons cannot cease to exist, neither under international law, neither under national law, because Southern Cameroon has a well-defined territory, it has a well-defined people, and it used to have a very well-defined government. So it cannot cease to exist. And again, this reflects the right to self-determination of the Southern Cameroonians. The Southern Cameroonians' right to self-determination does not cease to exist. The right to self-determination does not expire. The right to self-determination continues to live as much as people live. And these are the mistakes that people make. I am not sure that it's for political reasons or it is pure academic reasoning. But in 2009, the Banjul, the African Commission of Human and People's Rights in Banjul, recognized this right to self-determination of the Southern Cameroonians. And they advised that Cameroon should sit down and talk with people of the Southern Cameroons, because in other places where the right to self-determination has been violated, it has always led to war and to conflict. Talking about the violation of the right to self-determination, when in 1961, on the floor of the UN, when they were deliberating about Southern Cameroon's independence, when the UN was thinking about stripping or limiting Southern Cameroon's enforcement of their right to self-determination, the foreign minister of Austria warned that whenever people's right to self-determination are violated, it always comes back to haunt the UN. It is no magic to say today that this violation has come back to haunt the United Nations. It's very good that Prof says the plebiscite in 1961 was organized by the United Nations. But again, if we have to lay any credence to the words of the Foreign Affairs Minister of Austria at the UN in 1961, we would agree that this UN resolution that organized the plebiscite in 1961 was in contradiction to previous resolutions of the United Nations. So when we evoke the fact that the UN organized this, we are simply saying that the UN resolution 1352 that laid grounds for the independence of Southern Cameroon was in violation of resolutions 1541 and 1514, because 1541 and 1514 said independence could be attained by direct independence, association, or integration. Now, with the case of the Southern Cameroons and the British Northern Cameroons, as Prof rightly evoked, the United Nations said independence by joining. You know, independence, direct independence, or by association or by integration have their consequences well outlined in the resolutions that defined these. So when the UN decided to organize a plebiscite, saying by joining, it did not define the extent or the consequences of independence by joining. That is where the problem started from. So because it was organized by the UN does not mean that the plebiscite itself is void of illegality. It is full of illegality. And the illegality simply continued from 1961 right up to 1972. And these illegalities have been noted by the African Commission of Peoples and Human Rights. The question now should be, why is the decision from the African Commission not being implemented? You know, it's not being implemented for two reasons. The government of Cameroon has shown lack of interest in implementing this decision, which called for negotiations, for talks between the two parties. And of course, the Southern Cameroons, most of the Southern Cameroons frontliners argue against this decision even, and they want to take an appeal. They want to appeal this decision, and the problem limiting the appeal or hindering the appeal is that they do not have the right to file an appeal before the African Court of Human and People's Rights.
Okay.
If not, I think this should have been done.
Let me get your point on this.
That is an important.
Let me ask you now my question. You were reacting to Professor Ngolle. Isn't it obvious from what Professor Ngolle articulated that is it not obvious that the referendum should have been conducted nationwide? Because at the point in time when we accepted the unity with the French Cameroon, we were accepting under the basis that we live as a nation. Thus, if you put it only with the level of the French or the West Cameroonians, the decisions will indirectly affect those from the East Cameroon economically, politically, culturally, socially, and so it will still show disunity among two states, but rather bringing it together. Wouldn't it have been a nice idea? And secondly, the we and yes option that existed, was it a kind of way in which wanted to pave the way for national unity?
Yeah, I think I noted this point Prof made about building a stronger union, building a nation, building people's solid federation. I think this is off the mark. Nothing says that a federal state could not be a united or solid state. But that doesn't fall within the context of this question you've just put to me. Now, in 1961, when Southern Cameroonians were voting in an independent, in the plebiscite, Southern Cameroonians voted to come in a federation. French Cameroon did not vote to join Southern Cameroons. So the decision to change an arrangement is supposed to have gone back only to the party that engaged that arrangement. And so when the decision was opened to people who were not part of the arrangement, it then brings a question. Southern Cameroons joined East Cameroon. The question is, Southern Cameroonians, you joined on the basis of a federation. Do you want to remain if this federation is abused, if this federation is erased, if this federation is deleted? That is how the question should have been, and it should have been to the Southern Cameroonians. Like I said, the Southern Cameroonians had the right to self-determination, and this is what brought them there.
Okay.
They should have been the people to decide whether to remain or not to remain.
Okay.
The question of bringing in French Cameroonians to vote is off the mark.
So that is where you. That's where you see. That's where you see the
self-determination of Southern Cameroonians.
That's
you
why
violated the Constitution.
That's where you see the illegality.
Of course, that is the illegality on the 1972 level. But don't forget, as I mentioned in my previous intervention, the illegalities were just a continuation from previous illegalities. But there was an illegality here. Okay. You did not bring in people who were not party to the contract or to the joining to join, because remember, it was French Cameroon that promised Southern Cameroonians that the independence would be by a federation. They promised this. So they were supposed to come back and ask, do you want this federation to be broken? And at the same time, I heard Barrister Limen say there was a desire by Southern Cameroonians to join French Cameroon. I am not sure if he's saying this based only on within the context of the plebiscite, or it was extensive. Because I remember at the fourth commission, Foncha and Ngolle went there and said, hey, UN, give us more time, let us resolve these issues. We want to resolve these issues between a federation or between a joining and having independence before we come back to you. The UN declined. Foncha proposed that they would want independence before joining. the UN declined and said independence by joining. These are all technical issues that could be handled by lawyers. But let
just conclude, so that I asked you just conclude briefly.
Okay, then coming back to the question of a we and yes referendum, I was not alive at that point to know
maybe our technician should display a sample.
Yes, say there was a referendum.
Are you watching?
That was
if you're watching your screen,
and yes,
if you're watching,
I have not had any contrary evidence to say that there was a no and no ballot.
Mr. Ngolle.
So I will not want to say this because there's a probability that this ballot that we are seeing, that is ballot that we are seeing, could be a we and yes, and there could be another ballot for no and no.
We have not seen any ballot apart from this.
I have not seen that one.
We have not seen any ballot.
This is the only ballot I have seen so far, and I will not want to be so firm on this. But if this is the only thing we are saying, then there should be some credit to the fact that it was only one ballot that was we and yes. I cannot say much to this.
Because if you look at the ballot, thank you, Professor Barrister Nkamwah Limen. I asked Professor Ngolle about this same ballot, and Professor Ngolle said he was 19 years old at the time and cannot remember what was on the ballot. And based on that, he basically could not remember. And most scholars are saying that it was the we and yes doesn't mean that it was just like the we and yes was there, but there was no option. It was just we and yes. We have seen it. That's the only ballot we've seen so far. And Senior Barrister Nkea Emmanuel, who was supposed to be here but is not here at the moment, confirmed to me that that was the ballot used at the time. You were not born at that time.
Yep.
But you have read books. You've listened to stories. Briefly, before I ask my next question, there's this we and yes question.
You see, if the professor at 19 would tell us today that he cannot remember if it was yes and we. I just I just pray that he recollects and tell Cameroonians who are looking up to him.
A technician can still put that on the screen.
Yes, I just pray that he recollects sooner or later and edified Cameroonians, Anglophones who look up to him.
Let me read again before you continue. Let me read what is on that ballot. People cannot read. The upper part is the French version, and the lower part is the English version, and that was perfectly bilingual. And what you see there for English version, it says, do you approve with a view to consolidating national unity and accelerating the economic, social, and cultural development of the nation? The draft constitution submitted to the people of Cameroon by the President of the Federal Republic of Cameroon and instituting a republic of one and indivisible to be the United Republic of Cameroon. We dash yes.
You know, Javis, in my free mind, if I have to go with this, I'll tell you that if that is true, then there was a complicity between La République.
Because we are still to understand whether it's true or not.
Yes, because that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that if this is true, therefore, there would have been a complicity between our representatives and La République. Because something flagrant like that ought to have been rejected immediately, and it would have been a subject for international petitions.
But the sad reality here is that historians are not willing to talk to the media about it. Professors are not willing to talk to us about this. Whether it was true or whether that ballot, they have not rejected that it's not. The message there is not the message, but the we and yes, they are saying they could not remember where I was.
Javis, as a lawyer, I speak with the facts, the proofs that are presented. I'm saying that by what you presented, if that was the paper, then I blame our representatives equally for not objecting to such a document. Now, I think for you as a journalist, we still have many more Cameroonians, many more Southern Cameroonians, that you can carry on a research to tell us, to edify us, if that was actually the document that was used. But as we still said, I go back to the legality of that referendum, and I say it was illegal, and nothing legal can stand on illegality.
Okay. Professor Ngolle, again, let's get back to Professor Ngolle on the issue of the referendum, because it was supposed to be channeled to the parliament after the vote, but it was not sent to the parliament. Professor Ngolle said Aijo had the power to do so, that Aijo did not violate any constitution. Let's listen to Professor Ngolle.
No, first of all, I think that you don't, when somebody has power, like President Aijo had, you don't expect him to behave as if he doesn't have power. When power is power, when you have it, you exercise it. President Aijo had power from 1960, and he exercised the power as all holders of power have under the Constitution as it was. 1960 Constitution, 1961 Constitution, and the 1972 Constitution. He exercised the power. Any holder of power, no matter who you may be, you will exercise your power in accordance with the law. He exercised his powers according to the law. Politically speaking, he didn't have to go to see a lawyer or to go to a court and let the judge tell him what to do in a court of law. No. Once you have political power, state power, with executive power under the Constitution, you exercise the power. Now, when you bring in a situation like, oh, there were some rising powers, oh, there was some, well, that could have been true. I don't deny that. But power is power. Once you have it in your hands, the law allows you to exercise it. He exercised what he had under the law and under the Constitution. And the result, all the effects, all the consequences are what we know. He was able, with the power he had, and using the Constitution that was in place, to get the result that he wanted. And the result was that he wanted a more unified Cameroon. Did he violate the Constitution? No, he did not violate the Constitution, because the Constitution of 1961 permitted for the holder of power, the President of the Republic, President Aijo, and his Vice President, Dr. Nkamwah Limen, may their souls rest in peace, by the way, to be able to wield their power in such a way that they could get a more stronger, a more solid union from what obtained in 1961. They did that. As to what thinking or what calculations went into it, well, that's up for speculation. But the fact is, did he or did they, because he didn't, President Aijo did not do it alone. He had a vice president. His name was Dr. Nkamwah Limen. Did they do it legally, constitutionally, of course, politically? So they did it correctly. They were legitimate in their actions.
That was Professor Ngolle. This other message, I'm happy this program, people are reacting based on what was presented, so we are getting to the fact. This person writing from UK, Julius Chofor from UK, says there was a black ballot paper for no-no, but it was not given out in many polling stations, or was not counted. That this was a fraud in itself, because the polling everywhere usually has all options on the one sheet. So it means that there was actually another version which we have not seen till date about that. Anyway, your reaction to Professor Ngolle?
I want to challenge the minister for him to look for that constitution that gave the president the power
and the vice to
do whatever they have to do, even if it's not in conformity with the Constitution. Mr. Minister, there is no constitution in the whole world that gives provision for a head of state to amend or to modify provisions of that constitution by himself. Mr. Minister, let me draw you back, let me take you back to the provisions of the Constitution as when it comes to any law coming from the head of state that could be just under the Constitution. You know it is an ordinance. And you know for sure that in 1974, that same Aijo came out with the ordinance on land ordinance, the famous land ordinance. And so for you to tell people that when you have power, you use it the way you, sir, minister, this is terrible to say. So the president is above the law. That's what you're saying. It means, therefore, that if you become the president of this republic tomorrow, you will get up and choose what to do, regardless of the constitution.
But he's saying that the constitution, the people voted the president and gave him that mandate
no
to carry out
constitution,
that, and that he did that in complicity with the West Cameroon representative.
Javis, I want to tell you, and that's why I put him on challenge. I challenge him. He should bring me one constitution that gives the president the powers to act unconstitutionally. I want him, and honestly, I take the people of Cameroon as my witness. I want him to bring me a constitution of this country that has ever given the superior power to the president than to the constitution. And so to him, the simple fact that he was a president and had powers, he could do whatever. See, I am stupefied. I'm confused. We shouldn't say that. We shouldn't. The president derives his power from the constitution. You know that, I hope.
But the parliament did not intervene. Neither we had the West Cameroon parliament did not say no, this was unconstitutional. We had the East Cameroon parliament did not say no, this was unconstitutional.
Do you know?
Are you by chance saying that there was complicity between the both parliaments and ours?
Do you know what transpired even at the level of Fumban when we had the 1961 the draft? This many Anglophones, many of them protested.
Yeah, because Ngolle said issues like this is not something we can quickly rush over, that no one political party has the power.
Not him alone, not Ngolle alone. Not Ngolle alone. Many of the people present there, indeed, let me give you some of the statements made by, we have Namoso Mbile, who said, one of the delegates of the business community said this: we have the feeling that we have wasted our time coming to Fumban for the draft to be tabled in this fashion for our observation in this way. This is in total contradiction of our expectations. Are you getting it? That's what he said. And many more of them said the same thing. Ngolle and other delegates, too much haste would have far-reaching consequences on the people. You see, so these people have been complaining, and yet they tell us that to avoid killings, because they knew for sure that if they stand on their grounds, it will lead to killing of Southern Cameroonians, and that's why they accepted. So the issue, if a minister will tell me that the president has all powers to derogate from the provisions of the constitution, I tell you honestly, we should not say that. Okay,
let's, Mr. Ngolle Bertrand, you may want to react to the minister, the excerpt of the minister.
Yes, Javis. nothing can define the level of disappointment in me listening to Professor Ngolle. I would expect that as a political scientist, Professor Ngolle should identify a wrong, and then as a politician, he should try to justify the wrong. Something should take priority over another, and that should be his intellectual hat. To say that Ahidjo had the powers to violate the Constitution is in no better way saying that I approve of dictatorship. That is what dictators do. Dictators consider themselves above the Constitution. They violate the Constitution with impunity. And of course, nobody says anything. People just approve. Once a leader violates the Constitution, violates any law, even a decree signed by him, that leader is supposed to be held accountable. And the first people to hold such leaders accountable are intellectuals. They cannot in any case come in and say, here are the powers, here are the political power. What is political power? Political power is regulated by the Constitution. The reason for a Constitution is to check excesses, is to check political excesses, is to check abuse of power, and that is what Ahidjo did. If the Constitution says you do not do this, if the Constitution means it. So Ahidjo simply violated the Constitution in a dictatorial fashion. And I don't know why Professor Ngolle should be approving of that. That is one of the reasons for which I said I should have loved him to be on the panel to say this, so that we can discuss about it openly and maybe have some different thoughts. Talking about complicity with the two parliaments, there was no complicity with the two parliaments. The 1972 referendum was the end point. It did not start at that point. That was just the end point. It started when the right to self-determination was not recognized and was not respected. And of course, Ahidjo had put in a plan to arrive at this point well ahead of time. One of such could just be the appointment of federal inspectors. He appointed a federal inspector to the Southern Cameroons, and that federal inspector was more powerful than the Prime Minister of Southern Cameroons. The Prime Minister of the Southern Cameroons was the chief executive, and as chief executive, you should have right about police and gendarme and military within your state. But what happened? The federal inspector had the right and control of the police that the Prime Minister did not have. That is the first sentence or the first stage of dictatorship, because the Prime Minister will not do any action in contravention to the president, because he will not have the military might to enforce his actions. And when Ahidjo successfully used the military to dissolve all political parties along the line 1966, that was a step towards the 1972 referendum. So you see, he had taken off all political powers, imposed his federal inspector, who was from Cameroon, who was from the Republic of Cameroon, French Cameroon, into the Southern Cameroons, and he paid allegiance to the president in Yaoundé. He did not have any accountability to give to the Prime Minister, neither did he have to account to the West Cameroon House of Assembly. So these are all signs of a dictatorship. And when you come across as a dictator imposing such diktats, you are alienating the people, and the people become frustrated. That is why Bernard von Loon, along the lines, wrote a memo to Ahidjo saying, Mr. President, we've been into this union for some time, and it is necessary that we sit down and evaluate the progress done so far. Bernard von Loon did not receive a reply to that memo, neither did any other person receive a reply to that memo. When Ahidjo tried to kill the political parties, imposing federal inspectors, Prime Minister Joa told him, these are two states, these are two people who are living together. You do not come across as a dictator. Ahidjo would not listen. But did Joa have a military? Did Joa have the police? Did he have the gendarmerie? He did not. So, 1972 was just a culmination of dictatorial strides, of dictatorial policies that were already put in place. So, I find it very difficult to understand how I would agree that somebody violated the Constitution because he had the powers. And of course, I end up by saying that he did not violate the Constitution. He violated the Constitution. He did not go back to the assemblies as stipulated in 47.3. Okay. That is a violation of the Constitution.
Mr. Ngolle, I want us again to get back to Professor Ngolle. Professor Ngolle, on the issue of the article which you earlier cited about the changing the form of the state, which we said Article 47. Is it 47? Which said that the form of the state will not be touched. That's subject to the form of the state. It will not be touched, because if we look at what was agreed in form, I say the provision of the federal constitution will remain operational until 1st April 1963. The provision of the federal constitution will remain operational until 1st April 1963. On this issue, the draft constitution, the draft constitution will be submitted to both House of Parliament, and that the federal structure will not be touched. And Professor Ngolle reacted on this and said it was not true based on that.
I'm glad that you're bringing this up. I've forgotten the name of the number of the article of the 1961 Constitution. And it's good because we're all Cameroonian. I'm an English-speaking Cameroonian from the Southwest region. I have no reason whatsoever, and on top of that, I am an associate professor of political science. I teach it every day. I taught it in America, and I continue to teach it at the International Relations Institute of Cameroon. I tell you this, my dear brother, let us be frank, let us be honest, and let us be faithful, not only to each other, but also to our republic, because God is looking at us. If I'm lying, God is looking at me. If I'm lying, our forefathers are looking at me. Let us be frank, let us be honest. If I'm lying, those who gave me the PhD, in political science, in international relations, are also looking at me. Let us be frank. What is the truth is this. This is what the truth is. The 1961 Constitution, Federal Constitution, which took effect from the 1st of October 1961, had as an article, I've forgotten the number of the article, that the Federal Constitution, the federal character of the state couldn't be changed unless the stakeholders, all the actors are consulted on that sort of change. Read very well, and you can, I give you a chance to read that article. The article clearly says that the federal character of the state could not be changed unless, or could only be changed, could only be touched, could only be modified unless upon consultations with all the actors. That is what is, this is honesty, this is the truth. And tell all the lawyers to look at it again and read it fully. Don't read it only in half. Read it fully. And ask yourself, was it changed? Yes, because in 1972, the referendum changed it. Were there any consultations with all the political actors? The answer again is yes. So where is the illegality? Where is the unconstitutionality? It means that the 1972 referendum was in 100% in conformity with the 1961 Constitution is with regard to that particular article. The particular article did not say that you should never change the character of the federation. It didn't say so. It says that it cannot be changed unless and until consultations are done with all the actors. The question is, were consultations done with all the actors? The answer is very simple. Yes. Does anybody doubt that the consultations were done on camera, off camera? There was a full campaign where there were observers, there were journalists, the public is witness. And the results are public, they are known. Question. If anybody questions the legality and questions the constitutionality and the legitimacy of the 1972 Constitution, what are you doing? You are questioning the credibility of the people. You are questioning the honesty of the people, because the results, when the referendum took place, the results were published region by region, or division by division, or federated state by federated state. It was published. Everybody knows what the result was in Mezam, in Dongamantung, in
Okay, I want to begin with you, Ngolle. Mr. Ngolle, you've listened to Professor Ngolle, and when we started this program, you talked about that provision 47 that it was not supposed to be changed. But Professor Ngolle said that there were provisions which it was supposed to be changed based on consultation, that the necessary people were consulted, and once they were consulted, there was that political will for the people to openly vote to agree whether they want the federal system to be abolished based on the 1966 or not.
All right. Thank you, Javis. Let me look off camera a little, because I want to read the Constitution as it is written. Title 10, Revision of the Constitution, Article 47.
Yes.
Any proposal for the revision of the present Constitution which impairs the unity and integrity of the Federation shall be inadmissible. The power to initiate the revision of the Constitution shall belong equally to the President of the Federal Republic after consultation with the Prime of the Federated States and Deputies of Federal Assembly. Any proposal for revision submitted to the deputies must be signed by at least 1/3 of the members of the Federal Assembly. Proposals for revision shall be adopted by simple majority vote of the members of the Federal Assembly, provided that such majority includes a majority of the representatives of the Federal Assembly of each federated state. The President of the Republic may request, under the same conditions as for federal law, that the second reading be given to the revision of the Constitution. That's what the Constitution says. Article 1 is very clear. When it touches on the integrity of the Federation, it is inadmissible. So the rest of the articles open up to a revision of other articles, not to the amendment of the Constitution. It says, I don't know I'm finding it a little bit difficult to understand what Prof is interpreting. But this are the terms of the Constitution, and even if let's assume that the federation could be amended, when did the 1/3 of members of assembly sign on to the request?
Yeah, I was just about to come to that.
When? And where?
I was just about to come to that issue because Professor Ngolle said consultations were done in front of the media, off camera, that people were informed, and the necessary requirement as far as to breach that was reached at. That Ahijo took his time to reach at those requirements before moving forward to the referendum, and that you guys who are saying that it was not done is not true. That you people are lying to the Republic and to the people of Cameroon who gave the mandate.
I would let the viewers determine who is lying after reading maybe you read it again briefly. Maybe you read some. After listening to Professor Ngolle and after listening to me, the viewers should be able to say who is misrepresenting. I will not say lie. That is too disrespectful and on such a panel. Who is misrepresenting the facts of the Constitution? Members of Parliament must be consulted. And consultation is done in writing, and members of parliament have a chambers on which they are consulted. We're talking about administration here. And by the way, they're supposed to sign off. Sub 4 states are supposed to sign off. At least a third are supposed to sign off. When did they sign off? When were they consulted? You know, we need to, Professor says we need to be honest to ourselves, and we need to remember that God is watching on us. Yes, God is watching the consequences of those actions today. Those actions were done in violation of the law. Those actions were done in violation of the Constitution. Process is not all about legality. We are in human society. Mistakes can be made. That mistake was made in 1971. Everyone thought it was a mistake. We are in 2021. Okay. Ahijo died in 1989. Okay. Prof, it is time to get up and say, Mr. President Ahijo, you made a mistake, you violated the Constitution. Okay. A misrepresentation in perpetuity is a misrepresentation that is going to last forever, and it's going to bring on the consequences that we are seeing today. In 1961, the foreign minister of Austria said this was going to haunt us. In 2009, the African Commission of Human and People's Rights said this was going to haunt us. And how many people have died between 2016 and today? Sometimes we need to move out of our areas of expertise and be humane. We need to be humanitarian. We should not keep on perpetuating the narrative that is killing people on the ground. Before 2016,
we'll be coming to you.
We did not even talk about this.
I don't know if you can get us. I don't know if you can get us. Let's get to Nkamwah Limen. We are running out behind time. But let's get to Nkamwah Limen because we have two interventions from Professor Ngolle still remaining, which I want us to look at. Nkamwah Limen, you want to react?
Yes, I want to react and tell the minister that I'm sure that our forefathers are not happy with the statements he just made. We've had
he says he's reacting as a political scientist.
Listen, and reason why he put his intellectual honesty in question. Now, I want to appreciate Mr. Ngolle for the brief, the constitution that he just presented to us. Let me tell you something. There is no constitution that cannot be revised to begin with. But the issue here is that referendum was not one of the methods to revise that constitution, that Article 47. Referendum was not contemplated. And they had a reason why it was not supposed to be a referendum. They said the federal the assembly and then the regional
assembly.
Yeah, because they know for sure, in the spirit of the law, Anglophones, the Southern Cameroonians, will not have signed 3/4 of them for a modification of that text. And that is where the president maliciously said, okay, let me use referendum. And the question I want to ask Honorable Minister is, does that provision gives the president, or is referendum one of the means provided by that section article for a revise of that of that constitution? The answer is no. And if the answer is no, it goes without saying again that it was done in all illegality. He said that there was consultation off camera. Sad enough, he can remember that one. He does not remember the article. He does not remember if the ballot was yes, but he can remember that they were done off camera. You see, let us be honest to Cameroonians. And do you know something, Javis? This is a topic that many people avoid to come and talk, because it touches our integrity.
The sad reality is that we have people out there who are talking about the fact that no, invite this person, don't invite this person, but they cannot come and talk. When you invite them, they cannot come and talk.
It is a topic that not everybody will come and talk.
We have professors in universities who are afraid to talk.
Of course, they will want to protect, because we live in a society that when you come and talk tomorrow, they say you saw what happened to Ms. Nganyamdi. He was sent up north, and that is so people who have their personal interests at hand will not want to come and say this. But we should at one moment know that the Anglophone, we Anglophones must stand up for our Anglophone brothers. We should stand up, because a wrong done to an Anglophone is a wrong done to me. And so we should have the courage to say, you understand? And to me, I'm not as polite as Mr. Ngalim to say that I cannot say it's a lie. Lies were told, and even today the minister, what he said was not true. You understand? It is not true.
And he said, look, those being a PhD cannot challenge him on this issue. That is talking from a political standpoint.
Listen. I am doing a research in PhD. And so he should not think that what he knows is religious. No. What I'm saying is that even as a lecturer, I am frightened with his interpretation of the law and his position as a minister vis-a-vis his political inclinations. I'm dumbfounded. The provision cited does not indicate that referendum is one of the means of revising that constitution.
Okay.
And so that is it.
Okay. Maybe we'll move to the next. My reaction. No, my next intervention with Professor Ngolle. This interview was conducted prior to this program. He said, I asked him on the we and the yes option. Let's get his interpretation on the we and yes option, though we've just been told by another person that there was a black ballot which had the no and none. That was, he said, the viewer said, was not presented to most of the polling stations and was not counted. That's why we have 99.9%.
First of all, we who are Cameroonians of English-speaking expression were brought up and we went to school to be very honest with ourselves and we tried to be of good faith. We try to be respectful of everybody. That's the kind of schooling and upbringing that we've got. And I think that for us, we've always tried to show by example this Cameroon. You see, when 1972 referendum took place, I don't think it was intended to deceive the people of the Northwest and Southwest today, because the people of Northwest and Southwest themselves campaigned for that referendum, and the people of Northwest and Southwest themselves voted for that referendum. So, if there was a deception to take place, I don't think the people would have accepted, because the people are not fools. The people of Northwest and Southwest are pretty mature people. They couldn't have engaged in a process of self-deception. I don't think so. So, sure, there were calculations. There's no politics without calculations. But the bottom line is, as a republic, you have the liberty to say yes or no. You have the liberty to say, I want to understand more. You have the liberty to say, I'm not going to take part. You have the liberty to say, yes, I will take part. And I think that the people of Northwest and Southwest in 1972 were mature. And they showed their maturity by voting, just like their brothers of the other 8 regions of our republic. They voted. So the idea of reception was not contemplated even by themselves or by anybody in 1972. Now, if after 1984 change of name, somebody says, oh, you see, it was a deception after all, my argument is that the 1972, don't link it to 1984, because 1984 was a law that was adopted in Parliament that gave rise to a decree. I think it happened in 1984, change of name. It was just a change of name. And it just so happened that the change of name was the same as the name was before 1961. But the 1984 did not change the form of state.
Briefly, your reaction to that before moving to Ngolle. Briefly, we have about 4 minutes to go.
Okay, I agree with the professor for the first time that if there was this defectiveness of that document and it was not contested up till after the elections, it means that there was something wrong, as I said before. But equally, what I retain with him is that at this time he was honest and told us that there was, he said, amidst other statements, there was calculation. No politics without calculation. He said that there would have been calculations because there's no politics without calculation. And that is where I came in to say that they brought in the Francophones because they constituted 80% of the population and we had just 20%. So even if we did not vote at all, even if we did not vote, the 80% will prevail. And that is a loophole that the provision of the Constitution was trying to avoid. That it should not be that one section votes completely, you understand? So when the Federal Assembly carries out the voting, it goes down to the regional bureau, who equally should come out with, I think 3/4% of the votes. Okay. So I think that was where the calculation was.
Mr. Ngolle, maybe a brief reaction to that. We are slowly out of time. You have muted yourself. You're muted yourself. Briefly.
Thank you. Say that there was no self-deception and that certain Cameroonians were free and mature enough to vote is off the mark. But Limen has made a very important point about the numerical bargaining strength of West Cameroon, East Cameroon, as was called at the time. But I come back to my question of dictatorship. As Professor said, there is no politics without calculation, and he had carefully planned his act, and that is why he came up with the federal inspector, the military, and all the rest, and refused any form of evaluation, which is fundamental in progress and in moving forward. So it was well calculated, and it was intentionally made to silence the people, to use military might, to use a dictatorship to silence the people, so the people could not even ask questions. It is normal that people can ask questions. When Agbabala and the rest, Agbabala, Tumasang and the rest, Agbabala and the Tasang and the rest asked questions, what happened to them? Imagine what would happen to those who could ask questions in 1972. It should have been the same thing. They should have been in the dungeons for a very long time. So I think the point here is that we should not be forcing ourselves to kind of make sense out of what is not sensible. The 72 referendum violated the law, and it was not conducted in a free atmosphere where people could express their liberties and express their maturities as they were. Before I hand over the mic, I want to make a brief comment on the reaction Barrister Limen made to my initial post, to my previous statement about the amendment of the Constitution. It is true that all constitutions can be amended, but this Constitution was about the federal nature of the state. That is what could not be amended, and it was done for a reason. Barrister would agree with me that we interpret the law based on spirit and the letter. That was a letter that it is inadmissible. And it came as a result of a historical process where Ahidjo had assured Foncha and the UK that it was going to be a federal state. Okay. So Ahidjo, in his political calculations,
there's no time. Time is far. We are behind time. Maybe we take Ngolle's concluding statement, his last word, before we take Barrister's last word and everybody's last word, we conclude. It's just a few minutes.
Politics is the politics of the common good. Good politics is a politics where no matter how diverse, no matter how multicultural, no matter how multi-tribal or multi-ethnic or multi-linguistic you may be, good politics is no matter whether you speak English or French. Good politics is togetherness. Good politics is living together. Good politics is social cohesion. Good politics is national concord. Good politics is being nice and decent to one another. Good politics is not insulting. Good politics is not telling lies. So if it happens that there are problems we've got, where we see that some people are not satisfied, or some people are frustrated, or some people have questions, it is in their right to have questions. And that's why we all agree with the head of state when he said that the Anglophone crisis, when the lawyers and the teachers protested, there was some pertinence in it. I mean, they had some reason under the law.
Thank you very much, Barrister Nkamwah Limen. Before we take leave of you, your last word briefly.
Well, I just pray that we Anglophones should recognize that we have a problem and that we unite to resolve our problems. And I want to greet Mr. Ngalim, whom I found very intelligent, and I pray God bless us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngalim. Before we take leave of you, your last word before we go. You have muted yourself.
Good politics is respecting the rights of individuals. Good politics is respecting the law. Good politics is doing what is right, and good politics is respecting engagements that we have taken before. And we should ensure that these two parties, as they came together in 1961, come together as the two parties, respecting their rights to self-determination, to sit down and talk and get a solution to the current war. Thank you for having me on your program, Javis.
Thank you. I hope to have you all, gentlemen, for yet another edition, which we shall be looking at 1983. This program will be rebroadcast today at 10 p.m., tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. It will be rebroadcast. It will be on our YouTube channel, BT Media Group YouTube channel. On our Twitter, go BT Media Group. On our Twitter page is My Media Prime. On our Facebook page, My Media Prime. And of course, you can follow us, www.btmediagroup.com. Net. If you want to participate in a subsequent edition, contact me. You will participate in a subsequent edition. No matter the matter, what matter is your matter. No matter the matter, what matter is your matter. And what should matter for you is that good politics means objectivity, fairness, accuracy, and balance. Thanks very much, and goodbye from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Feng Gujombange.
Bienvenue dans un nouveau monde de la télévision. My Media Prime. Information, découverte, culture, sport, divertissement. Une chaîne du groupe BT Media avec pour slogan The African Eye. My Media Prime TV, c'est 80% de contenu en langue anglaise et 20% en français, 24 heures sur 24. Diffusé sur satellite, câble et en streaming. Soyez de nôtres. My Media Prime TV, The African Eye.